Ah, the Galaxy S5. This is a phone you've seen before. Or if you haven't seen it, you've seen the S4, or the S3, or any other Galaxy phone there is. Now, what I'm getting at is it's very familiar, but maybe too familiar, maybe sedentary. Now, other companies get along being familiar every year. I mean, look at Apple. So why can't another company do it? Is the Galaxy S5 just too familiar to stand out from the crowd, or are there some redeeming qualities? That's what you're here to find out, so let's take a look at my full review. You've seen the Galaxy S5 by now, so I'm not going to bore you with the tech specs. What you need to know, it runs a new processor, Snapdragon 801. Not top of the line at this point, but good enough. 16 gigs of RAM internally, with like 10 usable to the user. That's kind of terrible. 2 gigs of RAM, 16 megapixel camera without OIS. You get it, it's pretty run-of-the-mill, nothing too special. The only real standout feature is water resistance with IP57, and that is a good feature. In fact, that's something more OEMs need. But again, that's really the only feature. Design feels kind of uninspired. Bezels are slightly larger from last year, with a very marginal increase in screen size. Although, the change in material on the back is very welcomed, whether you like the pattern or not. The reason for that is no fingerprints. You can't really smudge it because it's kind of a soft plastic. While it's still flimsy and not exactly premium, it's nice. It's a good change. And if the Note 4 is any indication, it's a step in the right direction. Performance is an area that I'm really confused by. So I had the G2 for almost a solid year as my main driver, and I rarely experienced lag. While granted I ran ROMs constantly and I flashed new ones every week, the Galaxy S5 just falls victim to the same thing that the Galaxy S4 did, and the Galaxy S3, and it's lag. Now, while it's not constant, it's definitely there sporadically, and it's sporadic enough that it's annoying. Things that I've been able to do on my G2 without any problems at all, they kind of slow down the Galaxy S5, and I don't understand that. Now granted, the 801 is essentially an overclocked 800, it still gives a little more power, so I don't understand why. LG's managed to do some optimization that Samsung could use to learn from. But that's besides the point. TouchWiz is still TouchWiz. It's okay. Now what many people don't realize is over here in the States, styles like TouchWiz, they don't really fly very well. But in Korea, where Samsung is, it's actually really big there, and that explains why LG has such a weird skin too, and same goes for other companies like Lenovo, and all those. There's a reason for it because their main market, or their home market, well, those are the fashions that are in. Now for companies like Motorola that are home-based, or were, they understand the American market because that's where they're from, and that's what gives us such vanilla Android. But the fact remains, TouchWiz lags, and I don't know why, because we've reached a point where phone processors are really, really powerful. Could this change with Android L and a new 64-bit architecture? Possibly, but I guess only time's gonna tell. And it's kind of disappointing to say that in late 2014 where we have monster spec phones like this. Like I said before, the Galaxy S5 is really familiar, and it's kind of comfortable. That's probably the best way to describe it. Samsung is just comfortable, and their profits are starting to show that. One of the few standout features though is the camera. Now Samsung's always been known for having very saturated pictures in their cameras, and this holds true to that. But that being said, they're still nice. Fact of the matter is, the end user, who is not the person watching this video more than likely, they don't care. To them, it's vibrant. To them, it looks nice. And that's what they're in for. And I think that's why Samsung chooses to have the kind of pictures they do. Now granted, screen technology plays a little bit of factor in that, given the AMOLED, so colors are going to pop a little more on the phone, but I think Samsung is really going for the end user, and that's what many people don't realize. There's not optical image stabilization, which when compared directly, yeah, you notice it, but again, end user, they're not going to notice. Now I had a G2 which had OIS for almost a year, and I noticed, but I'm not a typical end user. In an industry where battery life is becoming such an important factor, some OEMs are getting things really right, like Sony, and others are getting it really wrong, like Samsung. Now, my battery usage, granted, is probably a little more intense than a typical user, but really not that much different. I use Twitter, I use Facebook, Google+, the usual social media sites, nothing too crazy. I have 2 emails pulling down pretty much all the time, just on the default settings. and I do have my Android Wear watch paired, but that altogether shouldn't make me have to charge my phone throughout the day. By 1 o'clock after waking up at 6, I'm looking at 40% battery life. That's pretty abysmal, and that's not even using that much of the screen, because I can do a lot of it from my watch now, and that's really nice. More on that in a future video. Battery life on the S5 is pretty abysmal in my experience, and I'm really disappointed. The G2, while it wasn't the best, it was pretty great, and remember, I'm a pretty heavy user, so I'm looking forward to see what the G3 has to offer, but for now, I'm disappointed with the S5. Under the camera, you might have noticed a rather large looking flash. Well, that's because it's not really a flash. There's one there, but there's also a heart rate monitor. It's okay when you're still and quiet, but that's not really when you're going to take your heart rate. Probably when you're at the gym or working out. But then again, I don't really want to hold my phone with sweaty hands anyway. So I'm not sure why they included that, but maybe that's a thing in Korea. I don't know. The speaker's alright. It's louder than average than most rear-facing speakers, but it's also a rear-facing speaker, and most of those are becoming louder than average, so it's pretty average. Overall, that's about it. The S5 features an IR blaster so you can use your TV, and a plastic design that we're not too crazy about. A few notable things about the S5. It's got a fingerprint scanner. The fingerprint scanner sucks. I turn it off. I think that's probably what 99% of users are going to say. In fact, almost 100%, because there's more secure methods than the fingerprint scanner. It's just really inaccurate all the time, and I've heard some positive experiences, and I'm never able to emulate that. So for me, it's pretty bad. Now, I've been really negative on the S5, and I don't want you to think I think it's a terrible phone, because I don't. For what it's worth, the S5 is a great phone, and compared to the contenders, offers equally, if not better features than what they offer. Granted, some of the features are really useless. Like, I've never used any of the air gestures, and I don't even use Smart Screen. In fact, I don't use really any Samsung feature, and don't even get me started on S-Voice. That being said, as a package, the S5 is a very great piece of hardware. It's powerful, although it does warm up randomly, and that I'm really confused by. But overall, it's really nice. Build quality is getting there. It's not what we want, but it's an improvement. And the IP57 certification is a definite plus, and I want to see that in more. Removable backs / replaceable batteries / expandable memory, yes. All big pluses, and especially for the Road Warrior, you want these. As a whole, the S5 is okay, and I think that's how Samsung feels too, because it's nothing special, it's nothing amazing, but it's not bad. It's a good phone, you won't go wrong with it, but maybe you can do better. And Samsung, maybe you can do better. Then there you have my full review of the Galaxy S5. I didn't go quite as in depth with this video as I did with others, but I didn't feel like it needed it. The S5's familiar, and not just with its predecessors. It checks all the boxes that a typical flagship would have, and it doesn't really stand out in any noticeable way. And in the ways that it does stand out, they're not exactly positive. Namely, battery life. Thanks for watching, I hope you appreciated it, and I hope it helped you out in some way. If you feel so inclined, click that like button down below. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel for future content. And as always, see you in the next video.